This is Diane Mourglia-Swerdlow bringing you another edition of Expansions.com News, and I got stories for you. And when I look at this list again, I just wish that Stewart was here because we would have some really great conversations. He's going to be surprised at what he's missed, and you're going to be amazed at what I'm going to tell you when you find some of this weird stuff that's going on in your world. And of course, what does that mean about your mind and mine? Sometimes that's scary as well, isn't it? Well, I want to start you off by talking about the Vatican, because that's always a nice source of conversation. Some of you may remember Pope John Paul II, of course no longer with us. Interesting news about his blood. Now, many of you who have visited Roman Catholic churches have found all the reliquaries that they have throughout their churches of, little bits and pieces of people. And you may wonder why, if you're not Roman Catholic, or even if you are Roman Catholic. The reason is because it actually holds the frequency of this particular person, and those are used in ritual. Well, guess what they have of Pope John Paul II? They have his blood. Now, that just blew me away when I read that. And now this is how we found out about it, that there was a priest who was taking this relic north on the train out of Civitavecchia in Italy, and then when he went to get off, he realized his backpack was missing. So he told police that a man who was traveling aboard the train with two others had distracted him by asking directions, and before the trio got off the train, a few stops before his, apparently that's who he thinks took the backpack. Interestingly, after searching for hours, just a few hours, they tell us, that the police found the relic without the backpack. Now look at this picture. They found this relic in a bunch of reeds that the thieves had just apparently tossed aside. How did they find this little tiny relic in the reeds? Now they do say, let me see here, I'll make sure I give you that. It's a tiny glass vial inserted into a reliquary in the form of an open book with gilded pages. So perhaps that's why. But it sounds kind of creepy to me all around. So, and of course, you also want to remember that John Paul II was a former Hitler Youth Group participant. So that is not lost on me or you either, hopefully as well. And of course, the Vatican has put him on the road to possible sainthood. So of course we want his blood. Who wouldn't want his blood? They said that they took that during one of his last hospital stays. So again, creepy, creepy stuff. Now, along the line of priests, there is a priest who claimed that teens are seducers involving sexual abuse cases which involve priests. In a recent interview with the National Catholic Register, Father Benedict Groeschel of Conservative Franciscan Friars of the Renewal said that teens act as seducers in some sexual abuse cases involving priests. He said that most of these relationships are heterosexual in nature, and that historically, sexual relationships between men and boys have not been thought of as a crime. And then, quote, if you go back 10 or 15 years ago with different sexual difficulties, except for rape or violence, it was very rarely brought as a civil crime. Nobody thought of it that way. And I'm inclined to think that if it's a priest's first offense, they should not go to jail because of their intention was not to commit a crime. He is a professor of pastoral psychology at St. Joseph's Seminary of the Archdiocese of New York. Now, to me, that's really scary. However, eventually he did come back and apologize. But the point is that this was still put out into the public, not to think of this as a crime between men and boys, and also that the teens were seducing. And interestingly enough, in a lot of the work that we do, many people who have been the victim of sexual abuse feel in the back of their mind that some way or another it was their fault. And of course, as a youth, you don't have all the capabilities and judgments of life experience to make those decisions, and that's why you generally are taken care of by other people, such as your parents or some type of guardian, and you're not left on your own because you can't make this type of decision for yourself. And continuing right along, we go back to Prince Harry, who I told you about last week. Of course, all of you have seen his pictures all over the internet about him cavorting naked in Las Vegas. Now, I also explained to you how the the palace basically said that it was fine. It's just that they caught him on camera and they shouldn't have done that. The security guards should have confiscated the cell phones and cameras and all of that. Well, now people are showing support for the nude Prince Harry by starting a Facebook page where you can salute him nude to show your support. And of course, they're also saying that cocaine was in use at the party, and there's somebody that supposedly has taped the whole party. And again, this is what the public wants from their leaders. And this is not that it doesn't go on, but it's like I would expect more from myself and from anybody that I would want leading me. And here we have it with the palace basically saying that this is okay and it's all just in fun. So think on these things and how your society is going and what you do in your spare time, and if that's the behavior you think that leaders should have. With that said, I want you also to remember I keep telling you these things and watch the trends. I've been talking to you about bestiality. Now bestiality, they've been having sex with sheep and horses and all kinds of stuff all over the internet. Now we have a commercial. The latest Skittles ad, which is a candy, shows a large flippered walrus caught making out with an attractive blonde on a couch. But when Bobby's supposed girlfriend comes home, I'm not sure who Bobby is, maybe that's the walrus, the woman explains that Bobby's not actually Bobby. Now, 1 Million Moms, which is a conservative advocacy group, alleges that the advertising is not just unfunny and offensive, but that it irresponsibly takes, quote, lightly the act of bestiality. The group urges like-minded citizens to send Wrigley Company an email demanding they pull this offensive commercial immediately. And it is a pretty strange commercial. I've watched it. I hope you take the time to watch it here from this link. In the article, it also has a Merriam-Webster definition of bestiality, because maybe not everybody knows what that is. And remember, they're working to imprint you. So they talk about the ad. They've got great advertising now for this issue. And they're going to tell you what it is so you don't have any mistakes what it is. So it defines bestiality as sexual relations between a human being and a lower animal. While there are no, and this goes on after the definition, while there are no federal anti-bestiality statutes, 30 states currently have criminal laws on the books that prohibit sexual contact with animals. Some laws consider the act a felony while others define it as a misdemeanor. So again, they're putting this out in front of you, and they're putting it out in a family type of a ho-ho funny atmosphere. But as I said, I watched the commercial and I thought it was very inappropriate myself. I mean, not that I'm going to write in letters about it, but I'm observing as I'm asking you to do. And keeping this in mind, we keep on going down this path in society, that there was an S&M club found in Louisville, Kentucky. Now apparently the building was bought by a couple who were going to renovate it, and lo and behold, 2 stories below street level, filled with paintings they found in these rooms that depicted sexually explicit and violent image. One image showed a person in bondage, another depicted a man devouring another person, where have we heard that before? And also painted on the wall was the logo of the club, which was named Latex. They've also found pieces of torture gear, including a wooden rack with a headrest and a rusted chain that could be turned by a handle with a saw blade that was connected to it. There's also a couch, candles, tables, chairs, and then it goes on to say that the club was dated back to the 70s. However, and how they found this person, they found a former Latex member who was actually a founding member. And of course he declined to be named, but he said that the club was being used until the mid-1990s, which probably tells you it was shut down, like last week or something. So, again, they're talking about hidden things that are underground, and they're bringing this to your attention. Following that, we have Under Las Vegas. Now, there is a new film that's called Undercity Las Vegas by an urban historian who wants you to see what lurks beneath the surface of one of America's most bustling cities. And this same team brought you Undercity, New York, and of course they want you to focus on the ecosystems and the vast floodings that problems can bring. That's the reasoning that they're giving you, the legitimate reasoning for talking about Under Las Vegas. So things that are under the ground, again, they're bringing your attention under. And you know, a lot of times when you hear me talk about this, and of course if you're not a regular on our webinars or our seminars or a member, you know, you may not always see the connection. So I want to be sure and draw this out for you, because this is all about imprinting you. And I was trying to think, how could I relate this, the things you might understand. And what came to me was something that's kind of caught me and may have you, which is photos on the internet. You know, they'll say, you know, look at this TV star from, you know, the 1970s, 1980s, see what he or she looks like now. And it used to be you would click on that link and you would get the star and you would go merrily, happily on your way. Now it says the same thing, and it will show you 10 or 15 or 30 or 100 pictures with that particular person buried in there. So you have to keep going further, even though in the beginning it was quick. Okay, a link, I see the picture, and I'm on to the next thing. And now you sit there and you click through, waiting until you get to the picture of what you really came to find in the first place. So that's how they kind of use that hook, that energetic hook, to drag you in. You know, same example of McDonald's. You know, when I was a child and McDonald's was first starting out, McDonald's burgers actually were very good, and they were big and they covered the bun and they were made of actual meat and all the things that you can't find there now, and they were very, very inexpensive. You could get a McDonald's hamburger for like a quarter or 29 cents or something at the time, and it was a reasonable meal. And now, of course, now that they've got you hooked and you go because you're used to that, now you can spend $7 or $8 for like bread and no meat, and what's in there they're calling meat. We're not really sure what it is. So, you know, this is how they hook you in. They get into your imprinting, they open up your frequency, and they reel you in. And the last example I wanted to give you was the amount of food that you get in a box or a can. Because as you know, if you get a box of cereal and you open it up, you know, it's like maybe a third full. And they say, oh, contents may settle, you know, volume may settle due to settling during shipping or whatever. Well, it doesn't settle 2/3 of a box down, you know. But you take that and you say, okay, I guess it must have. You don't even question that. It's like, why do we have this huge, huge box with this little amount of cereal in it? They've done the same things with cans. The cans maybe still weigh 16 ounces, but you don't have as many vegetables or whatever you expect to find in your can. They do other things. And even, again, when I was a child, I can remember that a can of tuna fish would make 4 big sandwiches. Now you're lucky if a can of tuna fish, you can get 2 sandwiches, maybe 1.5 out of it. So all these things, they continually change, and you don't stop and question it. You just go right along with their program without an issue. So, keeping that in mind, let's continue moving forward with these imprints that they're doing on you. We've talked several times about aliens. Well, this time, how about alien sex? This particular article starts off with, have you ever dreamed of traveling to distant planets, meeting exotic alien women and having sex with them? Well, surprise, surprise, in the one state in the U.S. where brothels are legal, there is a man who has purchased an old rundown brothel, and he is going to turn it into a place where you can have girls from another world. That's an unquote. And then he said that he has turned to an old friend to plan the costumes and decor, Hollywood madam turned Pahrump resident Heidi Fleiss, and he says, quote, she's the chief alien design queen. So now you can go and have sex with an alien, another way of imprinting you. Decline in sperm quality. Now, I've also talked to you about artificial wombs and all these things that are coming up, androgyny, because they want to have you in a box, and they literally want to have you in a box, in an artificial womb, and where that they can combine sperm and egg. And of course we know they're doing a lot of this with females' eggs. Now it's time to experiment on sperm. And of course here is their justification for that. Because it says one sperm bank in Israel says that when it opened its doors in 1991, it turned away about 1/3 of the applicants for low quality. Today, using the same standards, it says that it would reject more than 80%. So there it says that there is a real sperm decline. They don't know what that means for fertility, and scientists wonder if it could be harmful environmental toxins or even physiological changes in the body. You think? Okay, apparently they're not reading expansions.com. Now, here we have also a study that was done 20 years ago. It was published in the British Medical Journal, which reviewed 61 studies of semen quality between 1938 and 1990, and it came to a quote, a jolting conclusion. In 50 years, the sperm counts had halved, going from 113 million sperm per milliliter to 66 million sperm per milliliter, and the World Health Organization considers 15 million sperm per milliliter to be a normal sperm concentration. So things are changing. And of course, it not only has to do with the things they're talking about, but it has to do with what's going on in your mind, which obviously is affecting your body. And what is going on in your mind is affecting what you decide to put in your body. And of course, I am warning you, and I have been for years, and so has Stewart, about the dangers of marijuana, which they are trying to legalize. And of course, just because it's legal doesn't mean it's good for you. And interestingly, here is some more statistics for you. It says that in the United States alone, there were 4.9 million drug-related emergency room visits in 2010. It said about 750,000 involved alcohol, while 461,000 emergency room visits involved marijuana. And so they are also looking at this. People have a lot of problems with this, and they will eventually make it legal, just like all these other things that I'm telling you about. But when it's legal, just because it's legal, and you want to go out and have a party, then be sure and be willing to accept the consequences of what it's doing to your brain and the rest of your body. Now also, it found that in the British Medical Journal, again, it's found acute marijuana use was associated with an increased risk of motor vehicle crashes, especially fatal collisions. And again, I have told you about this. Right now we have a measurement for if a person is drunk or not drunk when they're driving. And now they're doing the same thing with marijuana. How much can you have in your system before you're considered out of control? So there are a lot of issues that are coming up. And as I mentioned, there are other things that were legal at one time, and it doesn't mean that they're not good for certain things. It just doesn't mean that it fits everybody all the time. And that's what they're trying to make it seem like to you, that it is harmless, it fits you no matter who you are, no matter what your walk of life is in. And everybody wants to quote the medical side of it, but everybody's using it for the recreational side. So again, think about what you're doing to your body and your mind and how that affects your life and other people's. Next, we move on to exploding glass, or as I like to call it, ELF. One man's morning was shattered, it says literally in this article, in Seattle, Washington, when his kitchen table spontaneously exploded. It said all that was left was the table's base and shards of glass. And of course, a person who works at Seattle Stained Glass explained it away this way. He says, oh, a hot pan, a bright sunny day, things like that can cause thermal stress and cause the table to break. It can release that tension in the glass and cause it just to explode. Well, of course, I don't buy that, obviously. But it goes on to say that these types of incidents have happened for years. In fact, ConsumerAffairs.com has fielded more than 2,000 complaints of glass patio tables from Martha Stewart everyday living exploding. In 2011, 2 people were reported injured when a Colorado family's table exploded. Now again, I'm going to call this ELF, because what is ELF going to do? It's going to heat the surface until eventually it causes tension in glass and is going to make it explode. Now yes, does that sound far-fetched? Perhaps to some of you. However, I went back because I remembered this article from back in 2008 where the military admitted that a high-powered signal from the Aberdeen Proving Grounds 35 miles northeast of Baltimore is drowning out the less than 1 watt emissions from private owners' garage units. The problem started in late February. Residents started replacing motors and batteries to try to solve the issue. Some residents bought new receivers and paid for their installation so as to avoid the interference. Apparently, military experiments with land mobile radio have been creating problems for garage door receivers since 2004. So they actually are talking about this issue and even say that they have a large Air Force facility in Colorado Springs, Colorado, which is where one of these tables exploded. So, point being is the military is saying that ELF is out there, is bombarding you, and there can be results. So that's my feeling about this mysterious exploding glass table. And you may have your own theory, but that's what I'm thinking. And so again, use your protection at all times, yourself, your home, everything that you can possibly do. Okay, tanning mom. Now this woman's been all over the news, and again, it's like, why? Why should we care about tanning mom? However, she fell over a table. Let's see, let me get her name here for you. Be sure and give her credit for all her troubles. Patricia Crensell. She was invited to be the guest of honor at a gay club. Now it doesn't exactly say why, but apparently it was to honor her and they were going to roast her, haha, no pun intended. But they were told that she might be an issue and therefore she needed to be watched. What's interesting is I believe that she is a victim of mind control and programming. It says the 44-year-old New Jersey mother of 5 appeared to be incoherent and not a big fan of the jokes. And it said she was stumbling the minute that she hit the carpet, that her words were slurred, and that all can be signs of programming that has been triggered. And she actually, I've seen pictures of her before she started all this tanning, and she actually was a very pretty woman. And of course, when you go into a tanning booth, it's all those bright lights that are hitting you and in your eyes. And during programming, there are oftentimes a lot of light that's happening. Now, all of this, the most interesting thing was they had somehow or another, I'm not sure who they are, they had decided that there would be a code word should she become a problem. Why would they even anticipate that she would be a problem? And that code word was, guess what? Christmas. So apparently as soon as they saw that she was having issues, they said we kept screaming and screaming and screaming the code word Christmas. Now, if she's falling down and she's slurring her words and she's having a problem, why would they have to keep screaming the code word Christmas to alert the security people who are already watching her? Obviously the woman's having an issue, obviously help her out. So the fact that they're screaming this word most likely is continuing the process. So just again, be aware of what's going on and why is this even making the news? Because if it could be a code word or a trigger for you as well. So be mindful. Now, speaking of programming, this is continuing because there's a lot of it going on out there. The more programmed you are, the less you in control of who and what you are, the better the global handlers like it and the easier you are to control. Here we have in Japan a Japanese model who they're saying is half human and half anime. What is anime? Anime, of course, is a cartoon character. This Japanese model only appears in public with her mask. Her name is Anna Amimiya, I guess, Amimiya. She's earned a certain amount of recognition by wearing a giant mask based on the facial features normally associated with anime comics and cartoons. Now, I learn all kinds of things from these research things. I hope you do too. One comic artist and journalist who writes about comics and anime said that her decision to perform with a giant cartoon mask on her head takes cosplay, that's in quotes. This is a term for when adults dress up as characters from anime, manga, fantasy, or sci-fi to, quote, an ultra creepy level. So that's called cosplay, in case you wanted to know. She's also, there's another name for it apparently too, it says what she's doing is called kigurumi, where adults, mostly men, dress up as creepy anime mascots. First they wear bodysuits to compress their figures before slipping on their costumes. But this is the first time I've seen an adult wear the mask like this. It's very fetishy, like a gimp mask. See, all this stuff is new to me. I'm learning so much. If you know about these things, you know more than me. But again, why would you want to compress yourself into a bodysuit and wear a mask? I don't know. Somebody does. It's programming. That's why. So then this comic says, or comic artist and journalist continues to say that this is the difference between Japanese and North American culture. He says if she was in the US, people would be trying to get photos of her without the mask, but in Japan they're not interested, which just tells me that in Japan they're more programmed than they've gotten to us here yet in the US. So that's good. We still want to see what's behind the mask. And this is going to imprint other people as well, just like I told you about before. I want you to understand what imprinting means. Now, continuing on with, to me, strange things. Have you heard of bronies? This was a new one on me. My son was telling me about it, and I personally had never heard of that before, so I researched it and actually found a very informative little 5-minute video on YouTube, which I encourage you to watch because I do think it's important for you to know what's going on in your world. What is a brony? Well, apparently bro comes from brother. You're like, hey bro. And then there was a little a television show for little girls called My Little Pony. And a brony is a grown-up man who likes to watch My Little Pony cartoons. And bronies are challenging our perception of gender roles, which may be more fluid than previously thought. That's a quote. And apparently, because my son likes to do the online gaming stuff, bronies are now infiltrating the online gaming community, and they're coming in very high tech, and they're much in demand for their skills for these people who play group games, and you need a certain person to play this position or a certain person to play that position. Lo and behold, here comes a brony to save your way. Does that sound like an imprint and an implant over the internet? It certainly does to me. So apparently, according to this show, the bronies are adult men who sincerely love My Little Pony, and they're not afraid to admit it. And they're working on changing our definition of masculinity, and that is their goal. Because here is a show about love and friendship, and not about hate and killing like men are thought to be, and so they want to show this part of themselves. And so therefore, even though My Little Pony was originally designed for little girls, these grown adult men who love this show want you to know that they now believe that friendship is magic. So keep that in mind. See what you can find out about bronies, and I'm curious to know what you think about the bronies personally. Now, I've also been reporting to you about little boys in skirts, and again, I have another story for you, and this follows right on the heels of the bronies. There is a man in Germany that's made the news, actually made it into a magazine. The magazine's name is Emma, and the German man's name is Niels Pickert, and he wears women's clothing, including nail polish, because he wants to help his 5-year-old son feel good about going out in dresses and skirts. You know, again, it's what's culturally appropriate. It's who and what you are. It's kind of like, you know, what do you want your kids to wear outside and why? You know, maybe they can play dress up inside. There's a reason. You know, all of this, they take this back to the fact of how women now wear pants. Well, at one time women didn't wear pants. They're working on androgyny, and this will be accepted soon. In fact, in my research, I found Marc Jacobs in a pink dress in Paris back in March of this same year, of 2012. So take a look, because guys, it's not going to just be for Scotland anymore. When Stewart comes back with that kilt, he may have to bring a few, and we may have to sell them to you, because this may be the new rage. So over there in Scotland, let's start sending those kilts here. Maybe Stewart will do a little Scottish jig or something when he returns home. Okay, I know we would have fun with this. The next one. The concern as kids are going back to school here in the U.S. anyway, North America, most of them start after Labor Day, some of them start before, but now of course schools are in the news because it's the start of the school year here. And the new concern is transgender children, or children that are already in gender transition that are coming into the school districts, because how do the educators deal with this? How do the other children deal with it? And again, my personal opinion is, you know, we need to let these children be who they are and raise them up to be who they are, and not be pushing all this on them so soon. Let them find out who they are. And sometimes that needs to be discussed with mom and dad in private, or whoever your caregivers are, so that you can make decisions that are best for yourself, for your children, and not just splash it out for everybody, because everybody's going to have an opinion. It's like what I tell you about Stewart and I. You know, when I started doing this work was, hey, I've got some great ideas I want to share. I had no idea that people were going to attack me and say terrible things about me and carry on because they didn't like me or whatever. You know, I just like, everybody live your own life. I agree to that. However, this is not allowing them to make their own decision. Now, it's a public decision. Let's have these things be private decisions. It's like sexuality. You know, there's certain things that need to be behind closed doors between consenting adults and not put out there all over the internet just because we can do it. You know, animals can have sex too. You know, you can have sex, but does that mean you need to show it to everybody just because you can? You know, that's the new thing. All right. Continuing on, because I know you've been waiting for this, right? And you know what I'm going to say. I want to keep you abreast of what's going on. Here we have a charity breast squeeze. Now, I'm sure all you guys out there wanted to participate in that, and these days you women too. Apparently, there's a Japanese porn channel that decided to have an interactive fundraiser, and this is was called August 25th through the 26th in Tokyo. Erotica will save the world. It was a 24-hour live stream event, and all the money went to benefit Stopping AIDS, which is the name of an organization that promotes AIDS awareness, treatment, and prevention. And it says here, just so you know, it's unaffiliated with the Stop AIDS project that is run by the San Francisco AIDS Foundation. They want you to know that. But what happens in this particular thing in Japan, in Tokyo, that after making a donation, of course sanitizing their hands, any participant over the age of 18 were allowed to squeeze the breasts of one of 10 Japanese adult video actresses. A limit of 2 squeezes per hand were allowed, and if donors wanted to squeeze more, they had to give again. So here we have more breast news for you, so I know you wanted that. Makes your day. All right, so continuing on, following on the heels of breast squeezing, we have whale vomit. How many of you know that whale vomit is valuable? I didn't know that, but now I do, and so now do you too. An 8-year-old boy in the UK found an interesting looking rock which turned out not to be a rock. This rock, or whale vomit, turned out to be worth $63,000. So I'm going to go out and start scouring the beaches for whale vomit, trust me. Or poop. If you find whale poop, that's also valuable, apparently. Now, I didn't realize this, and maybe you didn't either, and that's why I'm telling you, because I need to keep you informed on the weird things in the world, that apparently that this is in demand with perfume makers because it helps prolong the scent of perfume. It's like, who figured this out? That's what I want to know. I mean, who experimented with, and this specifically, sperm whale. So sperm whale poop and sperm whale vomit. Who found it to start with? Who decided that that prolongs the scent of perfume? And are they really telling us the truth? I don't know, but all I know is it sells for as much as $10,000 a pound, so I want some. So I'm going to go out and look when I'm done with this broadcast. Okay, then on to a little bit more sobering news. There have been bears in the news again. Now, somehow or another, all my links disappear. I had a few email issues this last week, but I want to tell you about this because I still think it's important for you to understand. The bear, of course, is the symbol for Russia. Of course, Stewart is going there in the Bear and Roses tour here in October, and anybody that wants to tag along, we still have room for as many as 2 people, and that's probably about it at this point, and you'll have to get your visa, so let us know if you want to go on the Bears and Roses tour to Russia with Stewart. With that being said, there are bears that are invading people's space again all over the internet. And this one in particular was of a man who was actually eaten by a bear. He was taking pictures, they say, from a relatively safe place, and the next thing you know, they've got him snapping pictures or his camera going off as he's eaten by a bear, which I think again is totally inappropriate to start putting this out on the internet. And there are other bear issues and attacks that are going on. And in the midst of all of this, then we also have a couple who is raising an 18-month-old grizzly bear named Billy in their Vancouver home. So I guess I wanted to put something light to take care of the thing that was not so light. And I just feel that that really is taking things out of context. Now, speaking of people killed by animals, this again, I think, was totally inappropriate. There was a mayor in Texas who was killed by his pet donkey who attacked him, and they're not really sure the cause of death or why apparently the male donkey became aggressive. That was what I got from the article. But what was interesting, but what was interesting to me was the title of this, and I've been telling you about what I'm seeing as titles, and then you click on things. We did the intersex thing. There's one other one last week I told you about. I can't remember, but you click on it and there's nothing written about it, but this is the link. This was totally inappropriate. This title was said, "Man killed by his own ass." Okay? Ass is another word, of course, for donkey. Man killed by his own ass. So when you click on it, what have you got? The man is killed by his pet donkey. What's going on here? And of course, donkey is the symbol for the Democrats, right? So we got some symbolism going on here. We'll find out. Now, children charged with killings. Again, inappropriate. Children don't know what's going on yet within themselves. In January, a 10-year-old child was taken into custody after a 12-year-old was stabbed to death in Florida. And this girl is being charged now with the death. Okay, that was in January. Then a Florida boy was convicted in 2001 of killing a 6-year-old playmate when he was 12. And now a 10-year-old girl, this was the latest, was charged Thursday with manslaughter in the death of an infant whose mother said had ingested medication and had been suffocated. The girl has not been identified, but it's the youngest person to be charged with manslaughter in Maine in at least 25 years. Now, all of these things are tragedies that someone was killed, but to me it is also very tragic that they would charge these children as adults, because obviously these children do not have the life experience to understand the ramifications of everything that they're doing. Yes, these obviously are troubled children, but why then do we want to put them through the trial? And perhaps it is to program them while they're away so that they can do more damage. I don't know, but they need help. They don't need to be put on trial. There are a lot of issues going on here behind the scenes. And the other thing that makes me wonder, you know, and I'm not a pro-abortion person, but I'm not anti-abortion either. If a child isn't wanted, and this is the best thing for all involved, I leave those decisions to those people making the decisions. And I will tell you that any woman that I've ever talked to who has had an abortion is left with a lot of trauma. So that much I know. However, there are a lot of people who say that when you start killing your own kind, that is the downfall of society. And so I think on that as well, and I put that out for you to think on it. And my question is, okay, we do kill, we execute adults for murder. Are we going to start executing children for murder? You know, so think on that, because what direction is our society going, and what effect will it have on you and your children and grandchildren and so forth as society rolls along? So again, I want you to think on these things. Now, with that in mind, I want to give you a couple of tips for safety, which, you know, we teach the ultimate protection. We teach you how to create a safe mind pattern. That doesn't mean you're going to have one just because you use our techniques. It's going to mean you're going to start building one. And it doesn't mean that our mind patterns keep us 100% safe all the time either, because if we have a slip up, something can get in. So we use the outer world as we can to boost the mind pattern until we get to that point where we have a mind pattern of 100% safety. Nobody on this world is perfect. Stewart and I are not perfect, and I tell you this all the time. We're real people, we have real issues, and we're giving you real solutions that are working for us. We're not perfect, or we wouldn't be here. With that said, I want to tell you a couple of things that happened here that, to me, again, should put everybody on notice. Here, not too long ago, a few days ago, a man in Florida, I believe, he's 9:30. This apparently then was at night, 9:30 p.m. There was a little girl and her 4-year-old sister. This little girl was 2 years old, sliding off of a Picasso sculpture, which was a popular play site for kids. While the little girl was sliding down and her father was there, a man walked up and grabbed this little girl by the arm, said this was his daughter, and started calling her Goldilocks, and tried to make off with her. She was screaming. The father managed to grab the child away and then ran after the abductor. Now, to me, this is really scary, because right there in the midst of many people, the man walked up and said, "This is my daughter, a 2-year-old," and started to grab her and run away. Now this man left his girlfriend to watch the other children that he was there with and ran and eventually did catch this attacker. However, what happens when, let's say, this man grabs one child and you're alone and somebody else pops out from the bushes and grabs the other child and runs off? What are you going to do? Okay, things happen. And I see very often children are out on their own, they're walking the streets on their own, they're going to the store, riding their bikes, all kinds of things. I don't care if you're a large town, small town, it's like, let's not step out in front of the bus. And here this man obviously thought that his child was well looked after and right under his nose. And when I was living in New York, I was told by people, you know, if you've got your child riding in the cart, you never turn your back on that child, because in New York they will just take them right out of your cart. So you have to be really careful these days. And the other thing that came to my attention, which you may not be aware of, and so I wanted to pass this on. This is a safety thing that please tell people you love, that a growing number of children are swallowing batteries, especially circular button batteries, which lead to thousands of emergency room visits each year. And oftentimes these children can't tell you what they've done. So you have to be very careful about batteries in young children. It said in 1997 through 2010, nearly 30,000 young children up to the age of 4 were taken to emergency rooms for battery-related injuries. More than half the cases involve the button batteries, and sometimes they don't know until it's too late what happened. The battery can explode in their stomach and release acid and kill them. So you must be very careful with batteries and young children and make sure, because kids love to work on things. And of course they want to find it and feel it, and maybe it looks like a piece of candy, I don't know, and it goes in the mouth and you don't know what they've swallowed, and next thing you know you're in an emergency room, they have fevers and vomiting, and it can be a challenge. So please, please, please watch batteries and young children. Now many of you may also have heard about this one. Of course we don't want to finish up without talking about UFOs. UFO secrets revealed. A lot of secrets being revealed. In fact, I had so many news stories, some of them I had to take out. But I noticed that's a word, and notice that they're going to tell you a secret about this, or secret this, secret that, because this is a way, again, they're imprinting you and opening up that frequency to put things in. However, on September 22nd, the National Atomic Testing Museum in Las Vegas is going to be revealing UFO-related secrets. Now, this museum is a Smithsonian institution affiliated museum, and so of course that means that it's more official, and so they're promising, you know, whatever's going to be revealed. Sometimes we never know. It could be, you know, they found a microbe on, you know, Venus or something. Who knows? But that's what they're now passing around the internet. So let's see what happens after September 22nd, if it's anything of note. Canada is in the news again. Canada is perhaps becoming a cashless society. And it says a recent article in Wired magazine spotlights Canada's Interact system and declares that Canada will beat the United States to become a cashless society, as if that's something to be proud of, right? Okay, the article argues that the not-for-profit Interact, run by Canada's major banks, is a major innovation that's unknown in many countries, including the US, that makes the elimination of cash both desirable and affordable. And of course, this is how they can track you with your purchases and whatever. So of course they want that stuck in. Now, I think I've mentioned we've been on airplanes. They will not take cash anymore. If you want to buy a headset or rent a headset for $1, you have to put on your credit card. They will not take cash from you. There are many places in the world that are not accepting cash. But interestingly, with this article, and this one I didn't put into my notes, but I was reading here recently that they're talking about returning the U.S. to gold standard. And what does that mean for you? And that's kind of scary too, considering what's the way that the money is not backed. So I'm going to be watching that. If I hear more and it has some conclusions, or I can give you what my thoughts are, I will continue to report on that. Now here's one for you that you have heard from us. Stewart wrote about some of this in Blue Blood, True Blood. We talked about it at True World History, and we've talked about to some of you privately or in your consultations and webinars and so forth. Japanese Jesus. Now, says this is one of the world's most ancient stories, familiar to millions across the globe. This one is what we've told you. After escaping Jerusalem, this is a direct quote from the article, Jesus Christ journeyed to Shingo, Japan, where he worked as a rice farmer, had a family, and ultimately died at the ripe old age of 106. Now, that's the basic premise. We have told you about Jesus escaping Jerusalem, and we have told you about his travels. And here we have someone in Japan where they actually have a shrine dedicated to this. And this was a BBC report. Now, many Christians claim that this Japanese Jesus legend is blasphemy. However, there are a lot of people who actually believe in this because it says in 1935 that there were ancient documents, supposedly we can't find them anymore, surprise, surprise, written by a Shinto priest that spelled out Jesus' activities in Japan's rural north. And according to BBC, the documents have disappeared again, you know. Now, one of the things that the priest said, that there used to be a name called Heberai, which is the Japanese word for Hebrew, and a folk song indigenous to the region which does not contain any Japanese words and it sounds like Hebrew. And it says the most interesting thing is that the ancient documents led to the discovery of 2 tombs. One supposedly is the gravesite of Jesus, and the other allegedly contains Jesus's brother's ears. Again, why? I guess this goes back to the Roman Catholic stuff of saving pieces of people, and a lock of the Blessed Virgin Mary's hair. So, interesting implications for Christianity as these stories begin to surface. You're going to find out they're going to start telling you a new story of Jesus. So again, you heard it first on expansions.com. Be sure to read Stewart's books and watch our DVDs because we have the truth in there. And speaking of the truth and pyramids, I have mentioned to you that our 10th annual fall conference is coming up. We are thrilled to have concert pianist Deborah Wyndham performing for us. We have Dr. Samir Osmanagic all the way from Bosnia to talk about his discovery, which is absolutely beyond amazing. And we are privileged to have Christopher Garitano with us, who is the producer of Montauk Chronicles, and he will be presenting his final version of the Montauk Chronicles movie. And of course, Stewart and I will be there with you. We will be talking about the hyperspace aspects of pyramids and your own personal storehouse of knowledge, what that means, and how you can open up your own hidden storehouse to reveal your own hidden secrets. There's that word again. But this is going to be a most jam-packed, the best conference that we have ever had. And I can't wait for you to come and participate in it with us. This will begin on the last weekend, Friday night of September, all the way through Sunday of the last Sunday of September. So it's going to be an absolutely amazing event, September 28th, 29th, and 30th. So mark your calendars. You must register for these events. Please go on our website and get your name on the list. We do have a couple that are by donation only, which is the Montauk Chronicle showing, and we have and the concert by concert pianist Deborah Wyndham, and we have a public talk by Dr. Osmanagic Sunday night. So this whole weekend is going to be absolutely amazing. So get yourself here to St. Joseph, Michigan. With that in mind about pyramids, I had somebody send me an article here just within the last couple of days about a team of explorers who claim that they have found evidence of at least 3 ancient man-made pyramids on, guess where? That's right, Antarctica. Now, the article goes on to say, can it be possible that Antarctica was once warm enough in the recent past to actually have had an ancient civilization living there? It sounds like stuff that we would write, and here they stole our stuff again. It says, if an ancient advanced culture did develop, are there any more structures still remaining that are buried under the ice? They're leaking out some pictures. We're going to show these pictures to you right here on this podcast, because I want you to see what's going on. So that is really basically what I have to tell you about what's going on in your world. And like I said, I had lots of other stories, but these were the most important ones to continue to show you the trends. I want you to keep observing. I want you to learn to stay in your center. Do your protection work. Do your deprogramming work. Make sure you keep that brown merger archetype at your pineal gland 24/7. You don't want to be triggered. You don't want to be activated. And most importantly, you want to be in control of your own mind. Let's know who and what we are as individuals so that other people don't get in there and dig around and make you think you're something you're not. I do hope that you are a member of our site, because that is where most of the action takes place, behind the scenes, for people who are serious. If you're going to put your money where your mouth is, you're going to be serious, you're going to read, you're going to dig, and we're going to give back to you much, much more than what you put out to us on a monthly basis. Because the more of you that support expansions.com, the more we can give back to you. So this month on the blog, we are talking about mind builds body, and we are really digging around into what creates what you outpicture in your life, in your health, and in all aspects. And it has a lot more to do with just the body, but that's where we're focusing on for now. So with that said, thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you next week when Stewart will be back here with me, and I hope I have so many exciting stories so we can hear his comments, and I just wonder if he'll be doing a little Scottish jig for you in his kilt. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.